Well, hello there. Welcome to Midas Letter Live for this Friday, August 31st. Summer is coming to an end. And alas, I am all alone here on the set of Midas Letter RAW. Why am I all alone? Because my friend's special head has transformed himself into a lump of clay. So I'm just going to pretend Ed is here because I can't find him. I don't know where he is. And it's really hurting me. But anyways, it doesn't mean that the show is going to be any less freaking spectacular. All it means is that you and me, audiencia, are going to have a little tete-a-tete, as it were, instead of me having a tete-a-tete with Ed. So, what can I tell you about today? We have Anthony Dutton is going to join us in a little bit and talk about his fiscal 2018 financials. We're going to talk a bit about what's happening with the Jetty Extracts thing. I think we should probably touch on a little bit of Cronos Group because that's sort of the big scandal in the space right now. And then at 3:30, Alan Brochstein is going to join us all the way from Houston, Texas via Skype, and we're going to talk about this, that, and the other thing in the cannabis space. So hopefully, please wish me luck that I can actually keep you somewhat engaged and amused and informed for the next hour by myself, except for special head and of course Alan Brochstein and Anthony Dutton. So now that I managed to get through that little part of the segment, I'm just going to cut straight to our audience here on YouTube because I really enjoy speaking to the people. And the people, you, are now so perfectly able to communicate with me directly in the chat that, I can't wait to hear. So here's the deal. Since I'm by myself, since Ed's not firing questions and smart remarks at me, and I have to come up with things to say, please put your comments into the chat box in either Facebook or YouTube, because I have both of them up here on my screen, and I shall endeavor to answer every single question that I can. All right, so that being said, I'm going to say hello Stefan Erickson on Facebook, Christopher Robert. Good afternoon, gents. It's just me. Jonathan Salami, hello. Any truth to the ETF shaving off some holdings beginning of September? Have I heard of that? ETFs shaving off some holdings beginning in September. Well, let's see. We all know that the next big value catalyst in the space, X of some big deal that nobody knows about yet because it hasn't happened, is the one we know about, is October 17th when products hit the shelves across Canada ready for recreational consumption. Now, the market tries to be really smart and tries to be where the puck is going to be, as the cliche is now so frequently used is. And so they are always trying to look 6 months down the road, maybe less, 3 months down the road. So if you were to consider that maybe by Q2 2019, the balance sheets of a lot of the ACMPR producers listed in Canada are going to start to demonstrate that maybe some of them aren't getting quite the uptake on the recreational side that they thought they would, then maybe there's going to be a bit of, here's another cliche in the financial space, bifurcation of companies, at least in the perception of the investing public, and maybe some of them are going to sell off and won't be able to raise another dime. They're going to be sold for parts, while other ones go on to advance into unicorn rarefied air. So I haven't heard of that happening, but it would make perfect sense if ETFs are trying to be ahead of the curve. That's such a relief. An intelligent question from the intelligent audience on Facebook. Now I challenge the intelligent audience on YouTube to come up with an equally as intriguing, scintillating question, but let me preface that, a question to which I have an answer, please. Otherwise I'm just going to have to make it up, and that's not very useful. So here on our screen, look at our new colors. How do you like this? This is the work of our co-producer, our co-sales document generator, associate salesperson, Alex Roberts, who's come up with these great new graphics. I think they're really spectacular. But looking at the chart here on the Midas Letter Large Cap Index, I thought we'd take a look at that. Oh, and we're having low resolution issues with our NDI again. Why does this always happen when I'm by myself? Why doesn't it ever happen when Ed's here? Why? I ask you, NDI. Anyways, you can kind of see that it's a blurry mess up there, but if you could see what I was seeing, you'd be seeing that the see, I'm going to cut this back down to 3 months. Hopefully that resolution will clear up a bit before too much time passes. And yeah, you'll see that the stocks were trading outside of the Bollinger Bands. I'm trying to support Ed even when he's not here, that, you know, trading on the band. As the stocks have been in this large cap index, they are bound and doomed to return to inside the Bollinger Band. And so that theory is proving correct over the last 3 sessions, as you can see here. Maybe you can't. No, maybe it's me talking to myself again because I can only see the graphics. And, but anyways, they're back inside the Bollinger Bands. The RSI is still at 66.99. Oh, we got a little bit better resolution there. But yes, our NDI has been causing us no end of issues. As you can see, that the graphics aren't translating quite as they should. But that's neither here nor there. Let's look at another index. I'm all about the indexes these days. If we go to MLSCC, so these are all of the companies trading in Canada in the cannabis space with a market cap over 100 million, but less than 500 million. As you can see, they are emulating very much the pattern of the large cap index. This index is up 1.64% of the day. The last one was, let's check that out again. Yeah, it's so slow over here. What can you do? MLSCC, MLCCC. Oof, this is so problematic. Bear with me here, bear with me. I don't have Ed to entertain you with non sequiturs while I twiddle and fiddle with the knobs here in the old stock machine. So, okay, yeah. The large cap index is up 2.45% today. The small cap is up 1.64. I'm going to put up the CSE index here. And let's see what that's looking like. All right, the CSE index is actually up 2.38%. So these are all the Canadian cannabis companies on the CSE. We're going to go take a look at the we're going to look at the individual constituents now on the large cap. Let's see how Cronos made out today. Oh, I dread to look. Did Andrew Left, who went on CNBC to further drive the spike into Cronos' back, did he have an effect? No, his little short strategy is clearly not being believed by the market because Cronos is up 10.28% today to 12.98. So, I mean, this is the thing about those short strategists releasing a report. Once people get to read it and realize that there's really not a strong argument there. There really was nothing. There was no smoking gun. There was no evident, glaring disconnect in the financials. It was all sort of circumstantial, and Cronos has recovered and will likely drive on to probably return to old levels, is my belief. So I'm assuming that I saw that quite a few people were upset yesterday with that report and had, let's just say, not friendly ideas about what could be done to Andrew Left. And that's okay, but looks like, Donnie Greco. Where's Donnie? Yes, Donnie, where is Greco? Donnie, that's a good one. You're talking to me on Skype or on Facebook. Donnie Greco was going to be here today as my co-host. Then something happened. He had to crap out. And Ed was supposed to be here, but Ed was not supposed to be here in the first place, so Ed had to crap out. And now, look at me. I'm stuck with this porcelain representation of Ed. Donnie Greco harassing me from the Facebook world. And Carl Boyd said he would have joined me today. Huh. Carl, had I thought about it, I would have called you first. Wow, we're going to do that next time one of these guys stiffs me and leaves me in the seat all alone. Anyways, so let's see. Carl's actually got a great question for me. Will these small caps run in the cannabis space first, or are these junior mining stocks ready to explode first in September? This is what I wonder. There's a real, and I'm sure you would probably agree with me, Carl, we probably agree on this, that there's a real sort of differential in the quality of a lot of the juniors. So there's a lot of juniors that are still coming to market that have probably a premium sort of management team in terms of marketing and brand building and creating market share as a result of past corporate incarnations. So I think it's disingenuous to say that all of the small caps are going to behave as a group, because there's just such a differentiation among quality. So, for example, I look at Cannex Capital, which is Anthony Dutton's deal, and by way of full disclosure, they are a client of our media production crew. We made a spectacular video of their acquisition target, Jetty Extracts, but we're saving that for when the acquisition closes, expected to be, according to Anthony, by the end of September. Forward-looking statements, not to be relied upon. Consult a broker in your jurisdiction. Do not listen to me at all. Anyways, back to it. So let's see, rearranging these holdings or these companies by who performed the best. Turns out Cronos is actually today the best performer among the large caps in Canada, having risen 10.28%, followed by MedMen, 8.2%. Wow, it's the rise of the Americans here. MedMen up 41 cents to $5.40, 8.2% gain for them. Canopy Growth, a bit of yo-yo action in Canopy Growth stock between 60 and 57.56, but today adding $2.07, up 3.6% to 59.75. Freya is gaining ground steadily, 3.5% added on again today. The Green Organic Dutchman, a little bit range bound lately between lower 5 and just about $6. 13 cent rise today, 2.34%, closing at $5.69. Sorry, closing. It's an hour from close, but it is a long weekend. What are you doing for the weekend? We have an air show in town, and all day today we've had jets circling the towers down in the financial district, and I've been thinking that Donald Trump was starting to attack Canada, but that was not a popular opinion with anybody. Whatever. Where am I going with this? I have no idea. Okay, Oxley Cannabis, $1.09, up $1 or 1.87%. CannTrust, here's a company that's sneaking up on everybody. This is a company that was trading below $7 just mere weeks ago and is now up 1.26% today to $10.46. Still one of the most undervalued companies. They're not a client, though they may become one soon. Brad Rogers is a dear friend, and so I happen to be very close to that company, so probably I shouldn't be trusted on that. Anyways, let's see, who else did I want to mention today? Oh yeah, Aurora. So Aurora's backing off a bit now. Very liquid stock, probably the most liquid stock among all of them. In fact, let's pull up Aurora's little chart here and see what they're looking like today. So yeah, they've had, they caught the wave on the rising tide that was catalyzed by the Constellation deal with Canopy now almost 2 weeks ago. And it had a recovery from $5 to just under $9 here. So now it's giving a little back. I'm sure there's a little profit taking from traders there. But I'll bet you all you Aurora shareholders, of which I am one, are very happy. Aurora is a client of the media production division. We're going out to Aurora Sun next month to shoot Aurora Sky and Aurora Sun, and who knows what else we're going to do, but we're really looking forward to seeing that operation. What else here? Let's go and see what's happening in the YouTube world, because I haven't really had a chat with anybody there. Buy FSD Pharma screams Anshul Mehta with, let's see, let's count the exclamation marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 exclamation points on his recommendation to buy FSD Pharma. Anshul, my friend, little word of advice. Credibility is associated with a measured tone when discussing recommendations. If you're going to add 16 exclamation points to the end of your buy FSD Pharma, your credibility is now officially shot, and probably nobody's paying any attention to you. Let's see, Tico Traders, so excited to see you at Aurora Sky. Oh, okay, Tico Traders is a long-term supporter and watcher and friend of ours, and always has a nice thing to say to us. So yeah, we're really excited about that. Fraser's back from vacation next week. Though we have been enjoying the company and the professionalism of his right-hand man, Steven Guevara, who has been instrumental. We shot some documentary this week. We have, I don't know if you can see it, but we have new lights in here. We've got Studio B is getting ready for its big inauguration. Studio B is where soon it'll be just like real TV, where it'll be like we throw to an interstitial. When you come back from the interstitial, there's a second interview all ready to go over there. It's going to be quite the thing. All right, any thoughts on Rover and the $85,000 grant from Northwestern Territories government? You know, I have no knowledge whatsoever of ROVR. I've never heard of them. And so the answer to that is no. Waiting and Weed. Happy Friday, James. Waiting and Weed, happy Friday to you. Why don't you look at a chart of Huge? Okay, the gauntlet has been thrown down, and now I'm going to pull up a chart of Huge. Tell you what, just for laughs, we'll make it the technical analysis chart, just so that I will channel Ed and I will channel Donnie and try to imagine what they would say. If I tried to channel Donnie, I would have to get rid of this candlesticks, and I would have to pull up a line chart. Oh, I see. I see why everybody's so excited. There's been a huge day on Huge. Huge has had a huge day. Trading now at 25 cents. Wow. Opened at 20 cents. Wow. That's incredible. Boy, I wish I knew what was driving that. Was it a press release? You know what? We can find out. We just have to pull this over here. No, here's where I have to go. There. Bear with me here. I don't really know how to drive this thing. Okay, here we go. We're going to pull up the news on this window. Let's go news. I'm really curious to see what the news is, because here's the thing. If a stock flies so much on no news, then what you're seeing is the outcome of a big promotional push. There is no exception to that. CNX here, let's go. All right, Huge. FSD Pharma reports Q2 results today, and that drove a 25% increase in the stock? It's hardly possible. Let's take a look at their financials. Completion of 25,000 square foot solely owned by... Okay, strong cash position with 31.7 million in more or less liquid assets. Okay, so, you know, there's not really any mention of... What do we got here? In excess of 3 million square feet of construction. Okay, so this is still talking about the future. And so, interestingly enough, I would not say that there is anything in here to justify a 25% rush on the stock. Just my opinion, not to be trusted, as I said, because I'm compromised on all these things, though I don't own Huge. And, you know, but who knows? Maybe they've got a huge budget for promo, and that's almost better than business developments if you catch it at the right time. So anyways, they're on track for all these great things they're going to do. Let's see if I've made anybody angry over in YouTube world by not talking about... Okay, let's see. Did you guys see GLDN today? Yeah, okay, so switching over to mining now. Golden broke 51 cents today, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if I can do this quickly without being too much. GLDN, oh, I'm getting so fast at this. My God, it's almost youthful again. Here's Golden. So again, non-cannabis stock, but I can't emphasize enough how you all are going to want to be looking outside of the cannabis space when the proverbial cock-a-doodle hits the fan, which it always does. This thing can't go up forever. And at some point, there's going to be a resource market. You mark my words. Mark my words. And I know. We sound like a broken record here in Toronto. Everybody's been predicting a reversal. Commodity prices have never been cheaper. Now's the time to buy. But by way of disclosure, I own quite a bit of GLDN. Probably my average buy-in price was 33 cents, so I'm up handsomely. So happy to talk about them. What is driving GLDN interest, you might ask? They released that hole 2 weeks ago, 300 plus meters, 0.3 copper, 0.75 gold, and word on the street and from the camp is that there's plenty more good news where that came from. So where everybody's accumulating gold and waiting with bated breath to see what the next results look like. We're going to cover all the mining stuff right now so that I don't have to mention it again, and we can get back to cannabis because I know that's what you all like. Sick. This is another one. So I bought it. I think I was up here somewhere at 38 or something. And the results came out and the market sold off because they interpreted it as a bad result. Now, far be it from me to say that the market is wrong, but the market is wrong because they intercepted over a meter of like 240 grams per ton gold in a zone that was nowhere near where the discovery was made 2 weeks ago, where they ran across, was it 12 meters of 44 grams per ton? So the rest of this drill program was not in that zone. So this phase 2 drill program, which is scheduled to start for SIC in October, is going to be all in that zone. So the drill results that come out from that are probably more widely anticipated, but the short attention, gnat-like attention span of the market day trading, mining, discovery hole investor mentality says, screw that, I'm going to go on to where there's better chances of things happening. So then the other mining stock that we are all in love with around here is Aben Resources. You can see that it's been in an accumulation phase here between 39 and 44 cents. They also have a bunch of results at the lab. I'm also a shareholder of Aben in a private placement, average price 30 cents. So not to be trusted, I tell you, just not to be trusted. I will say anything to make my stock go higher. No, I won't. I will not. I will actually reveal the bad with the good, even if it means financially wounding myself to the quick. Why? Don't ask me. I'm just not that smart, I guess. Anyways, good news is, I'm going to have a conversation with my good friend Alan Brochstein from Texas using this small device, which I'm going to stick in my ear, and he should appear on screen here any minute. Hello, Alan.
Hey, how's it going, James?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How's my mic coming? I got rid of the headset.
Ooh, no, your mic sounds fantastic. Yes, and you no longer look like you're on a spaceship.
Oh, and I'm wearing my tweed shirt today.
Oh, nice.
Just a little shout out, not to tweed, but anybody that wants to send me a shirt, I'll wear almost any shirt.
Actually, it's funny, I was at Tweed last week for their shindig on the lawn, and
Yep.
I bought a sweatshirt, I bought 2 sweatshirts, I bought t-shirts, I bought a hat. I basically swagged up. But I was there
Except for the good stuff. No good stuff.
Well, not yet, you know. It's just a matter of a couple months now until they can actually. But actually, I don't think we're ever going to see a time where you can go show up at a licensed producer and start sampling the product. I mean, like a winery.
I think we will actually.
Well, I bet you that happens prior to Canada in the United States, because that's always.
I think they're going to do that. That you'll be able to have on-site dispensaries in Ontario.
Oh, really?
Anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. On-site dispensaries.
Right.
Oh, at the growers.
I don't know if they'll give it to you, but at least they can sell it.
And probably won't be allowed to consume it there.
I was in Toronto, and I had never been in Vancouver. I had been in one, but I had never been in a Toronto dispensary. I was scared to death. I left my wife outside with my cell phone and everything. I didn't want to be missing in action, and I went in there. It was really scary, but that's not what we're here to talk.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So a lot of the dispensaries, the Canadian government has now opened a pathway for illegal dispensaries to become legal if they agree to stop selling cannabis from now until the point which they pass all the testing. And so, a lot of
these guys will never clear, I promise.
Yeah, well,
One I went into.
Well, you know, it's
Never
interesting.
clear.
There's some friends of ours at Cannabis Compliance who have like 60% of the applicants in Canada as clients, and they are helping some of these guys, and they think that there's about 10% of them that might actually get a license one day.
Right, I agree. There's definitely some good guys out there and gals, but a lot of these people are just crooks. The one I went to was just a bad one.
Yeah, okay. So, speaking of bad things happening, I was curious to hear your take on, which I'm sure you've read, Andrew Left's Citron Research report, where he, created a lot of sort of negative impression around Cronos, which was bought into by the market the day he put out his research, but then today the stock's back up 10%. So I was wondering if you had a chance to review that research and what you thought of it.
I did. I don't know Andrew. I've been following him for years. He wreaks havoc. He kind of reminds me of the Joker or the Riddler, one of those fiends. And so I didn't think the report was very good. It just doesn't jibe with my understanding of the company. But the one thing he and I would agree on is the stock is stupidly valued. So I've been saying that for a long time, and it just goes up. So
yeah. Well, but then, I mean, if you look at all of the large cap stocks, all of the stocks over 500 million trading in Canada, you'd be hard pressed to point to one of them and say that's a justified valuation at this point, based on traditional fundamentals.
Right. And trying to look at things like how much they're selling right now and revenue and all that, it's just not a very fair game. I mean, you have some companies that maybe 2 years from now will, like take T-God, for instance. They have no sales right now purposefully. Does that mean they're worth nothing? No. So I think that's kind of dangerous. I think the main point he was trying to make was that the company wasn't properly disclosing things. I think that was so far off base, it's incredible. So, but we do agree the valuation's pretty steep. And so one point I've been making, James, is that the U.S. listed companies have really benefited from this recent inflow of money. So Canopy Growth being one of them, but they set off this storm with the big, who gets $3.8 billion US except for them. And that's created speculative frenzy, and it's really fed into the US investor base. So a lot of what's going on, and you can just look and see, because Cronos trades multiples in the United States. Canopy Growth is getting more dollar volume, especially currency adjusted, in the United States. Tilray is knocking the cover off the ball in terms of daily trading value. These three companies are just killing it and way higher than everybody else. Are they the three best companies? I mean, they may or may not be, but just because they're listed in the US right now does not make them the best companies, but they're the best trading companies right now.
Yeah. No, it's spectacular. I mean, I'm sure you've been observing as well that there's been a real sort of, I hate to use the term bifurcation because it's so overused these days, but there really is a bifurcation of, the unicorns in the space versus companies that have a tremendous business model and, the real kernel of a genuine business, like Cannex Capital put out its financials today. They're the biggest supplier of flour in Washington State, and they're also in the midst of the acquisition of one of the largest extracted product providers in California. And they delivered a quarter, or rather they delivered a year where they did 2.5 million in revenue, they have 14 million in cash. Sorry?
I thought it was, so they gave a 7-month number, so it's a little understated actually from where they really are.
Right. Sorry, 6.9 million was the revenue, and they generated an EBITDA number that was, that was not unrespectable. And so I look at, and this company's trading at, essentially the same level it was before all the frenzy got started. And I look at this company and I think this is what's more deserving of a feeding frenzy, a company that's building real business with real distribution in 2 of the biggest states. You see these companies being ignored and everybody chasing these giant fairy tales of future growth, and it's like you just sit there and shake your head and wonder.
Yeah, so I think you're onto a point. When I saw the news about Constellation, and everybody probably knew it was going to happen eventually, nobody would have thought they'd do it this way with this this much of a premium, this much cash. I mean, it's huge. But the idea that they had already partnered and they were going to follow up. But so the initial reaction is, what other LP can I buy? That's the initial reaction. I think people need to look at what drove that deal, and it's not Canada necessarily. It's not being an LP. It's about positioning for the United States. So I've had a thesis for a while, and that is that there's going to be lots of consolidators in the United States, which is much bigger. So in Canada, you've got, 6 companies that are $1 billion market cap or more. You have only a couple in the United States right now, and that are public, and some that are coming that'll be more. You have the chance for some really huge businesses to be built here. And if you look at what this whole deal was about, it's not just the United States, but that's certainly a big part of it. It's really about what's going on outside of Canada. And certainly the Canadian LPs, many of them are positioned to take advantage of what's going on outside Canada. And certainly to see these kind of cross-border deals, you're not going to see anybody invest in Ianthus, that's like a pharmaceutical company or a CPG company or anything like that, because that's just not going to happen yet. So I get it, but the reality is the value is probably in these U.S. companies, and I don't think they're doing nothing. I don't follow Cannex quite as closely. It's on my radar, but I will point to, I'm very happy to say that 2 of the companies that I follow, one's a client, one's not, Canna Royalty and MPX, both exploded to new all-time highs this week. So it's not just Canada. It's not quite the feeding frenzy. But I think U.S. investors are going to become increasingly comfortable buying these CSE listed names over time. It's just right now they're doing the easy thing, and they're buying either an ETF that's going to feed into the large names, or they're buying these 3 companies, Canopy Growth, Tilray, and Cronos, that are listed on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange.
Right. Do you think that so the Constellation deal gets announced and suddenly CNBC and Bloomberg are all over the cannabis space, whereas previously they'd only been sort of superficially covering it, and now they're now they're all in. Do you think that's had a big effect on sort of legitimizing the sector for U.S. investors?
Yeah, and I think that really feeds into my whole point. And it's not just CNBC, although that's a great one. And just a shout out to Tim Seymour, who's kind of leading that whole charge, because they haven't done a good job historically, but he's their anointed cannabis king. I think he's actually has a good court around him now. He's doing a good job, and I had a chance to meet him at the Benzinga Cannabis Capital Conference a couple of weeks ago. But it's not just CNBC, Investors Business Daily, and if you go to any of their articles, they're only writing about Cronos, Tilray, and Canopy Growth. It just feeds into what I'm talking about in terms of you have all these people that are naive to cannabis investing coming into the market. I see it in my own metrics with we're hitting record page views, record app downloads, all sorts of metrics that we use internally at New Cannabis Ventures. And I see my signups at 420 Investors, so I know that there's a lot of interest coming in the market. And these are people that have not been involved historically, and so they do the easy thing, which is, because I have to say I've been doing this for 5 years. It's getting harder and harder actually, because there's so many opportunities, so many companies. So they do the easy thing, which is to buy these New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ listed names. Well, I'll tell you, I'm here to say that Aphria and Aurora will likely be on those exchanges soon. I don't know if that's going to help them or take some of the excitement out of these other 3 names. But then, I'd like to see CanTrust and maybe Organogram and TGOD. Those are 3 other ones that are TSX listed that, you have to imagine they're seeing what's going on, and they'll do everything they can. It's not that easy. Cronos Group, which, we started off talking about Andrew Left accusing them of being terrible people, they were the first ones to do it. It's not easy. They have to be Sarbanes-Oxley compliant. They beat everybody. It was amazing to see that happen, because some of the companies they beat, that doesn't happen to them. So more support for Cronos. I don't like the stock. I like the company. I like the CEO, and I like their investors. But so I think if you're new to the cannabis market, be aware of this dynamic right now that everybody's piling into these momentum names. I mean, I'll just say Tilray is insanely valued. It's insane to me, and I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I think we're all in a bit of shock at Tilray specifically, but the bottom line is the speculation is what's driving this, as you've said. And there's really no valuation going on in terms of what's happening on the balance sheet of these things at all.
Right.
You know, and I think Tilray puts out these financials where they doubled their loss to $12 million, obviously associated with going public on NASDAQ largely, but they increased revenue exponentially as well, but not to the point where the stock should go from $30 to $60 overnight. And so I'm constantly writing an article, where does this all end? And I'm curious to think that, where do you see, at what point in the timeline does sort of a rational sort of valuation metric start to manifest in the large cap cannabis space?
Yeah, I'm not the right person to ask. I always tell my subscribers that these stocks fall more than I think and they go up more than I think. And, valuation doesn't matter until it matters, is what I always say. And so as long as it's going up, it doesn't matter. I will say a few things about Tilray for people who care. And it's a great company. I'm not trying to knock the company at all, but it's a very tight float right now. The only shares that trade are the IPO shares. You never know. They could do what GTI did and do a secondary offering, which GTI did. Would be smart to raise more money at 3x or whatever it is, 4x almost. So that beyond that, we're going to have to wait till January till more shares hit the market. But to me, it goes a little bit deeper. I think, you can have a lot of respect for a company, but still kind of laugh at their valuation. Back to Cronos Group, which I don't think I've ever recommended anybody buy, and that's not a smart statement, by the way. It's just the truth. He was criticizing them for having, 5 or 6% international revenue. Tilray was 3%. Give me a break.
Yeah.
And so that's one point. The other point I want to make is Tilray is positioned to be a consumer cannabis provider. They only had 7 million of inventory. That's 7 million US, but 7 million of inventory at the end of June. So they're very weakly positioned, at least in the near term, compared to like Canopy Growth that has like 100 million of revenue, of inventory. And there are very few companies. This continues to be a challenge, I think. Right now they're growing as fast as they can, but there's going to be, and I don't know if it'll be Tilray, I wouldn't suspect it will, but there'll be a lot of companies that just are not able to do what they think they're going to do because they have problems scaling up. So,
Right. One of the companies that I like to talk about is Aurora, because there's been this perception they were briefly worth more than Canopy one day or for a week or something, and now that sort of distance between the two has really widened, and everybody and their dog watching is saying, okay, well, so where's Aurora's billion-dollar investor? What's Aurora's strategy? And so, when it comes to especially the conversation, well, who else could be in line for such an investment? Certainly, the quick pass default conclusion for me is, well, where's Aurora? Like, where's Aurora's big investment? And I think that, they've gone very quiet lately. And that leads me to suspect that there might be something brewing there.
Yeah, I don't know. They've done a lot of acquisitions, and that can scare off buyers, perhaps. But that's not really my forte. They're not at the top of my list to be acquired. I see them as a consolidator themselves. They've obviously proven that with 2 big acquisitions in the direct LP space, but also building out an ancillary type of empire that they're building as well. That Anandia Labs is very highly coveted and respected across the industry, and they were able to get that, and they're doing other things as well. But when people ask me who I think are the top of the list for acquisition, and I don't know if Afria is or not, and I don't think Diageo is necessarily looking to buy a whole company either. But the ones that I think really stand out are CanTrust and Organigram. There's some others, I'm not going to mention them, but those are the 2 that I think would be really good acquisition candidates, and because they're a lot less money, first of all. You don't have to pay as much. And, to get a seat at the table, if you can pick up a top 7, top 6 company in terms of where they are right now, those look to me to be more appealing. They don't check all the boxes quite yet. Obviously Aurora, Afria, and Canopy Growth have more international operations, and I think certain types of buyers would want to see that. But I'll tell you, the thing I've been floating with my subscribers at 420 Investor over the last several weeks really since GW had its drug approved. I think a pharmaceutical company should be buying a Canadian LP. This is like a layup. It's a deal that would be cash flow accretive potentially and allow a pharmaceutical company to start doing research. And we've talked about this before. I know you've talked to Bruce Linton about it, all the pharmaceutical substitution, and there is research going on in Canada, much easier to do it there. So you're a global pharmaceutical company and you want to get in the cannabis space, go buy a CanTrust, go buy, there's other companies too, I'm just going to stick to the big ones right now, that have a medical approach, and I think there's just a ton of synergy there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned Aphria, and as soon as you said Aphria, I'm looking at the chat forums on both of our YouTube and Facebook page, and they immediately light up, and people want to know more about Aphria. I think they feel like, I mean, if I was to just look at the general gist of the conversation, they feel like Aphria should be up there in the 20s and $30 and $40 per share range, and I get the sense that they feel like they've been shortchanged and the market's missing the point. But what is your interpretation of why Aphria seems to have lagged its peers, at least in terms of when they got started and the size of them?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Vic and the folks at Aphria. I've known them well for quite some time. I'd say historically, and it's not just Aphria, there's no shortage of arrogance in this sector, but the Aphria arrogance may have been their positioning that we're going to be a greenhouse grower in Leamington, and that's all you need to be. And I think they were late to the game on international, and then this whole idea that you need to be in all the provinces and maybe be in greenhouse, not just in greenhouses, but in indoor grow. So they've addressed these problems maybe a little bit late. And I think, unfortunately, they've been tainted, right or wrong, by these self-dealing accusations. And I don't know where I come down on it. I think you can talk about both sides of that. Very expensive. I had an extensive conversation with Vic a couple, maybe 3 weeks ago, before I headed to Canada, and I was very blunt about that point, about they looked reactionary and they looked, the way their appearance was not great. And the appearance and the reality are probably very different. But I think that that's really been a problem. And you've gone from a situation where investors had nothing but respect for the company to questions. And so that's an opportunity. I like to tell my subscribers to remember, it was just a year and 2 months ago when Canopy Growth was like 650 in Canada. So things change very quickly. I couldn't figure it out. I was pounding the table, loading up on Canopy Growth in my model portfolios and saying, this makes no sense, it's going to go up. And it's obviously, and I wasn't that good about it. I didn't hang on for $60 or whatever, but for a while, at least I got the bottom. I'm better at bottoms than riding the wave. But so to the Aphria people, I would say your time will probably come. It's a very competent team. I think they're just kind of struggling with digesting all these acquisitions and the questions that go around them.
Mm-hmm, sure. So now we've got a whole bunch of big IPOs on the immediate horizon. There's the Charlotte's Web Group, there's the Acreage Pharms Group, there's the KUSH. Well, KUSH Bottles is already public, but I understand that they're getting ready to uplist. And
hopefully, that's what I said a while ago. I think that's the plan, and their fiscal year ends today, and so their audit is due in November. And so I would say, if you're trying to handicap it, by February, so the next 6 months.
Sure. KUSH Bottles is just one of the companies that I know absolutely nothing about, and so is that a company that you follow? I'd be happy to.
Well, so full disclosure, they're a client. But I've been following them for a while, and I would say that they are the leading ancillary play. I think there's some others that are going to be hitting the markets pretty soon, and some would say, well, what about Hawthorne, which is part of Scott's? That's obviously bigger, but it's buried in that large company, and they're having some digestion problems, to say the least, at Scott's Miracle-Gro. But as a pure play, it's a company that's covered by Cowen, first of all, which is very rare. Cowen covers Tilray, KUSH Bottles, and Canopy Growth. That's it. Those are its official coverage. I hope I'm not missing one. But so it's in that elite group. They are totally ancillary. So if the NASDAQ's going to do anything, it would most likely be with that type of company. But I'm not sure that they will, just to be real clear. Sure. But they'll make the attempt. They qualify in every manner in terms of their stock price, equity. I think I'm trying to remember, their board of directors, they may need to add one more, but they've done some additions. So the company itself, people have misunderstood it because they thought that they were buying stuff in China and then just flipping it. But they have some proprietary technology, and what they started to do is leverage their relationships recently, and they bought a gas distribution company. And so, as you know, extracts are where it's all at, and extracts rely on butane, CO2, certain gases. So they're going to do more and more smart things like this. They did an even larger deal a little over a year ago, when they bought a company that was a vaporizer cartridge company and all sorts of accessories related to vaporizers, and it was really a very complimentary deal. And just to put big numbers on it, they doubled their revenue and they gave up, I think, less than a third of the company to do that. And so they did a big capital raise in I think it was June, and it was a kind of a disaster. In some ways it was great. They raised a ton of money. It was a direct offering, but the pricing kind of sucked, to be perfectly frank. So there was some digestion there. I think it's passed, and I think it's a pretty exciting company.
Yeah. What do you think of the Canopy Rivers IPO coming up in the next week here, next 2 weeks? Canopy Rivers being the investment arm.
Yeah, I can't really comment on that because I haven't really looked at the numbers specifically, but conceptually, I kind of like it. I think that they can really benefit from that ecosystem. I would point to, I think that people should look at what's been going on with Canopy Rivers. They have investments in TerraSend and James Wagner, and it's just kind of interesting to see, what's going on at those companies and how Canopy Rivers got into them. They're in a good position to benefit from a lot of what's going on at Canopy Growth, and I think they're in a position to kind of not only ride the coattails, but to really create some value. And it's kind of funny because it's no secret that Chuck Raffici and Bruce Linton have their issues, and Oxley and Canopy Rivers might be considered bitter enemies, and because of that. So they're kind of competitors, very different companies, Canopy Rivers and Oxley. And I kind of have struggled historically with the Oxley model. I don't know if you've looked into it or not, but to me, we talk about it all the time. Oxley was all about having long-term access to giving people money in the short term so that they could get long-term access to cannabis. But cannabis is going to be a commodity. So I would say to look at what some of these, like TerraSend especially, not a commodity company at all. So I think Canopy Rivers may have a better strategy, but I can't really, I've looked at the numbers from where they did that last deal and where Oxley was at the time, and I thought it looked all right, but I'm not fresh on it.
Anyways, that's one I'm excited about because they're just down the street from me here in Toronto, but they also, some of their portfolio holdings are regular guests on my show, like James E. Wagner Cultivation, who has been a client historically, Livewell Farms, who was I don't believe they were a client, but they're kicking the tires or something. But so it's like I look at their portfolio, and again, the TerraSend thing, who is definitely not a client, but they've got a diversification, and the whole thing with JWC, for example, being the only aeroponic grower of any scale anywhere in this whole industry is extremely intriguing to me, because the aeroponic approach, if proven, will demonstrate a super low cost of production over time, just because of the density of production possible with this aeroponic technology. So I look at that and I'm very excited. What do you make of the Charlotte's Web IPO? I must disclose that I'm a shareholder of a very small position that I got in on the president's list, but I'm curious as to, the Stanley brothers were the guys who first sort of publicly went against the medical association by administering or allowing to be administered CBD concentrates to children who are suffering from epilepsy. And anecdotally, we are led to understand that these children have since made full recoveries from epilepsy or a life characterized by epileptic fits, thanks to continuous use of CBDs with no harmful side effects. So I think about that, and in the context of GW Pharma and the epileptrol licensing by the FDA, we're clearly in a situation where, I think that the medical impetus is where the real engine of this cannabis industry is going to turn out to be long after the recreational wave has passed over. It's the vast range of new substances, drugs, molecules that can be patented out of cannabis, where there's serious runway for massive value catalyzation in biomedical sense.
So let me first disclose they're going to be a client at New Cannabis Ventures too. So I just like to make sure that's always clear. Yep. The way people should think about this is CBDs. I know people call it the aspirin or Tylenol or something. It's really like the fish oil of our industry and the new fish oil. And so you have this parallel path where you now have GW Pharma about to sell Epidiolex, which is very restricted in terms of its label. It's only for epilepsy, versus CBD in general. People are buying it not just for, in Charlotte's Web's not being sold for just epilepsy. I don't know exactly all the breakdown, but it's very wide. It's not narrowly focused. So this is a company that you can go back to 2013 and you'll see that they were the subject of Sanjay Gupta's weed, the first one. And so it's really kind of awesome to see them cash out a little bit, but more exciting to cash out to build something that's so sustainable. And there's 3 companies that I've been following that have all made it to the public market that I thought did a really good job. There's probably more, but these were just the 3 that I've been following, and they're all experiencing great growth. Those companies are Charlotte's Web, CV Sciences, which CBD Plus is their product, and the other one's Elixinol, which is an Australian company. All these booming numbers. Charlotte's Web could not have picked a better time to go public. I thought the price was fair at the time, $7 Canadian, so $5.50 US or something like that. The reason why it's such a great time, it appears that we are on the cusp of federal law changing that's really going to open the door for these companies to do even better. And even with absent that, there's just been an incredible change in the consumer demand for these products in just the last 2 quarters. And so it's all public record. You can look at the Charlotte Web numbers or Elixinol or CV Sciences. The demand's been just incredible. And Charlotte's Web sells, I think, mainly over the internet. And I know that CV Sciences has probably done a little bit better job of getting their Plus product into retail stores, but they do that as well at Charlotte's Web. But very exciting story.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited too, Alan. I'm going to leave it there for now because we've taken a half hour of your time, which is about as much as I feel like I can ask of you. I really appreciate your
especially during trading hours.
Sorry, especially during trading hours. Yes, but it's Labor Day Friday. There's not much trading going on this afternoon. Anyway, so it was great to talk to you again. We'll come back to you in a very short time and continue the conversation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you too, James.
Alan Brochstein, always a delightful conversation, always knowledgeable, always fully disclosed on who is a client or who is a holding, and that's why I'm happy to talk to Alan all the time. Probably one of the most plugged in guys in the industry. So yeah, we've got all these great IPOs coming that are, you got to wonder how much of this can the industry take? How many companies can there be? How many opportunities? The number of opportunities, the rate at which they're coming increases. Interestingly, I happened to take a couple of minutes today and I went and looked at the Health Canada licensing website for new LPs in Canada. And did you know that in August of this year, they have issued 1 license? In July, they issued 2 licenses. In June, it was 7. So the question is, has Health Canada decided that there is enough medical providers of cannabis to the medical community in Canada? And that's an interesting question because there are over 500 applications still at Health Canada, and a lot of those companies are wondering when they're going to get their license. So, but to think that there's still 500 applications in process at Health Canada, that's just Canada. Think about California now. There was 50,000 estimated growers and dispensers and people with licenses in various categories. When the new rules took effect in January, they reduced that number to 10,000. So I wonder, does that mean that there's 40,000 people who are now caught in a no man's land of licensing who are now trying to get licensed in California alone? I find it very interesting also that it's a very American perspective to say that California is the most important market in the world. I would disagree vehemently with that. It's neither the biggest nor the most important. It's not important because it's actually one of the oldest markets in the world, and therefore very, very, very mature. Anyways, I had a conversation with Anthony Dutton today, and we're going to cut to that right now. He's going to talk about his his 2018, 7 months ended April 30th, 2018 financials. Here's that conversation. Hey, welcome back to Midas Letter Live. My next guest is Anthony Dutton, CEO of Cannex Capital Group, trading on the CSE under symbol CNNX. Anthony, welcome back.
Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. You guys put out some financial results that are not too shabby, to say the least.
My pleasure. No, we're very, very pleased with those results, actually, and I think the positive EBITDA is something that a lot of people haven't seen a lot of in the cannabis sector, so we're very pleased that our first financials out show a very strong underlying operation.
Yeah, you bet. So, what was the main driver of revenue in this last quarter?
That's the problem.
So, just to revisit the structure of our company, James, I've talked about this before on Midas Letter, but we own, through our holding companies, the assets of the largest processor cultivator in Washington State, a company called Northwest Cannabis Solutions, and we stream out from them all of essentially their net income less working capital. So that comes up by way of rents on buildings and operations that we own. It comes up by way of markups on materials that we supply to them, lighting, packaging, fertilizer, so on and so forth. So that is ultimately what generates the Cannex revenue. The operational revenue of the business, while we didn't put it in our consolidated financials, you see that we did refer to it in our MD&A. And last year they did approximately $27 million US in top line revenue, making them the largest operation in the state of Washington.
Wow, that's fantastic. And so how is it going with your acquisition of Jetty Extracts?
Yeah, no, that is on everybody's lips, obviously. It's something that we're pushing on pretty hard. There are no issues other than just the typical things you would expect to see around a complex cross-border transaction.
Right.
We have good updates, good developments on that, and we hope that we're going to close it by, I would guess here, the end of September.
Okay, that's fantastic. We have a tremendous video on the library that we were going to release as soon as that's complete, obviously. So then...
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing that. So
yeah.
I know you guys do phenomenal work. They really enjoyed having you there, by the way.
Thank you. So the last time you raised money was the $48 million financing?
That's correct. So we raised that in the earlier part of this year. We came to trade on the 14th of March. The raise was initially going to be a $25 million raise. We closed the book at 48. It was done at $1, which is approximately where we're trading today. So I think what the market is waiting for is exactly what you've already brought up, James. The play in the U.S. is about having a multi-state platform. And, right now we obviously have a very strong operation through our holding companies in Washington State. But what the market is looking for is, expanded vision in the United States and expansion into additional states. So we've already obviously made the step in California. We view that Jetty as what we're referring to as a beachhead. We really do want to build around Jetty and become a dominant player in the state of California. And then also, we said publicly, we want to be in a couple of other states, hopefully by the end of the year. We're very, very focused on our acquisition strategy or our partnership strategy. And we are looking at a number of different opportunities, and we hope to be able to talk about them in more detail, relatively soon.
Sure. So tell me, how has Jetty been making out in California? I mean, I know that they were in a sweet spot. They were selling pretty much everything that they were capable of producing, and most of the dispensaries were finding themselves challenged by the new testing regime that came into effect July 1st. And something like 80% of the 80% of the growers in California can't get through that process. So I'm just wondering, how has that affected Jetty's business in the meantime?
Well, in the earlier part of this year, like with most other companies in California, they had a bit of a challenging start. Nothing to do with the company fundamentals, but everything to do with the regulatory transition from the old regs to the new regs. And so, as you've already pointed out, the rollout of the dispensaries, the bottlenecks at testing, have proven to be a challenge for the whole industry. To Jetty's credit, they saw a lot of this coming, and they did some pretty, I think, strategic and smart defensive moves in terms of building up inventory and having product ready to be distributed to the dispensaries that are coming online. So relative to other companies, from what we can tell, and obviously we don't have complete data, but we think that Jetty are doing very well. They had a very strong July, and August is looking equally as strong. But that being said, we have to be very conscious of the fact that California is still a market, in transition, and there are going to continue to be, bumps along the way. But that being said, they have a very strong brand. They have a loyal following. They have fantastic buy-in from their consumers. So I think long term, Jetty are exceptionally well positioned.
Mm-hmm. So Washington State, you're already the biggest supplier of cannabis in the state, correct?
Well, we are the biggest supplier of cannabis flower, and we're also the biggest supplier of the derivative products. In Washington, the breakdown of the market is about 70% flower, maybe 65% flower, 35% derivative products. We're weighted a little bit more heavily towards derivative, about 55-45, 55 being flower. We see the market evolving not only in Washington, but everywhere for that matter, in this range of derivative products: vapes, edibles, tinctures, patches, things that are made from the extracts from the processing of the actual cannabis oils. So that is really where we're focused on in California, because Jetty Extracts does not have any cultivation. And ultimately, we think that the bigger play here is going to be what we're referring to as consumer packaged goods or consumer branded goods. And those are going to come out of the extraction, processing, and value add manufacturing platforms that we're building.
Mm-hmm. I saw John Boehner's interview recently. I looked at it again on CNBC, where he's joined the board of a cannabis grower in the U.S., and he's essentially reversed his position against the legalization of cannabis and is now advocating for the legalization of cannabis on multiple fronts. Has that sort of change in the legislative landscape trickled down to from where you sit at all, that you're seeing a momentum increase towards broad-based federal deprohibition of cannabis?
There's a lot of questions in that one question, but essentially the answer is yes. A year ago when we were going out to meet mostly institutional accounts, the number one question that they had was, what is the political risk of entering in the U.S.? Today, that's no longer even really a question. I think most people are much more comfortable with the regulations as they stand today, and are pretty optimistic that things are going to change over time. And John Boehner, paraphrasing him, he said, the thinking on cannabis has changed, and I have as well. And I think that is kind of reflective of a lot of people in the cannabis sector. And they're, with more education and more understanding, I think they're realizing that this is actually a very vibrant sector. It creates tax revenue, it creates jobs. There's a number of people who are talking about the decrease in things like violent crime, drunk driving, opioid addiction, opioid overdoses. So I think on balance, the net positives of cannabis are far outweighing any kind of negative issues that people still may be focused on.
You bet. All right, Anthony, that's a great update. We're going to leave it there for now. We'll come back to you in due course. Thanks for the update.
Okay, I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Bye for now. How about that? I spent a couple of days down there in California at Jetty Extracts sampling some of their products, and let me just say that they work really good, really good. Anyways, a little too good. In fact, I had to go and lock myself in a dark room and recover. So there you have it. The Cronos thing, just to summarize, neither my good friend Alan Brochstein nor were any of us really impressed with Andrew Leff's coverage. We invited him to participate in a conversation today, and he did not even respond, even though we know that he got the request. So, you know, that's kind of the bottom line. He doesn't want to be challenged by anybody who's going to be able to take him to task on his representations. He doesn't want to be challenged on, you know, the fluff, essentially, that was at the essence of his Citron Research report. Andrew, if you're listening, if you're eavesdropping, I invite you to, you know, make your case for the short thesis on Cronos or any other cannabis company. It should be pretty easy because they're all trading at insane valuations. It's a speculative trade. It's not trading on a balance sheet at all. I would think you would know that, however. What else? So, yeah, Cannex, Anthony, he's got this deal closing with Jetty Extracts, I think, by the end of September, as he just said. We've got Canopy Rivers coming to trade in the second week of September. The symbol, as is pointed out here, I saw somebody actually pointed out that the symbol was going to be RIV. Exjester SX, who is prolific in his comments, but they're all good comments. So, you know, very, very astute observations there. I want to say hello to all of you on YouTube and Facebook. Today, for those who are counting, YouTube is outdoing Facebook by about 2 to 1. But that's normal. That's normal. We seem to have better traction on the YouTube channel. What else can I tell you? What else was there? There was some really interesting thing. Oh, there was a news item today that was really broadly disseminated that parents in Alberta were concerned that there was not enough information or support or education for youth in Alberta ahead of the recreational rules taking effect on October 17th. And, you know, I'm going to have to just put it out there, but when I first smoked dope, I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and there was not a force in the universe that could have stopped me from experimenting with cannabis because I was just so intrigued by it, I remember, and it did kind of change my life. We're not going to discuss it any further than that. Robert Tolan is asking about Ianthus. And Ianthus is one of my favorite companies. They're not a client. They're not a shareholding. If you ask me, well, if you like them so much, why don't you own it? I'd say, because every time I go to buy it, the stock takes off to the north. And the one thing I do not do ever is chase stocks to the upside, because I have had my derriere handed to me on a platter by doing so. Anyways, I'm going to go back to our indexes here. We didn't get a chance to really look at the individual constituents of the smaller ones, and it's always fun to see how they did. So I'm going to go back to the Canada's page. Let's look at the Canadian Venture Index in particular. It was up 1.12% today to 900. So 9x return on money since January 1st, 2015. Blah. Can tell it's Friday. Can tell it's a long weekend. Can you tell I'm ready to go home? Okay, so let's see. Who is the big traders on the Devonian Health Group, Inc.? It's so strange to me when these unknown companies become the big traders. Anyways, Devonian Health up 15.79%, 6 cents higher, closed at 44 cents. Obviously, you're going to go have a look at them to see what they do. I've never heard of them. James E. Wagner Cultivation Corporation is a client of our GFN Media Production. We have a video up on YouTube under our marijuana documentaries that you can go check out. James E. Wagner is the only aeroponics cultivator in the LP universe in Canada. Aeroponics, what is that, you may ask? Aeroponics is, rather than growing roots through hydroponically in a substrate, the roots are suspended and misted in real time continuously in no substrate. They just dangle and they just blast them with nutrient solution. until it's time, of course, to flush them out. There are some interesting things about aeroponics that potentially might suggest that it could be one of the cheapest ways to grow cannabis in an indoor environment. James E. Wagner is going to be the company to prove that. James E. Wagner is owned 15% by Canopy Rivers, which is the company that's going public next week. Canopy Rivers will be a client, as Canopy is a client, as is Aurora is a client. We only deal with the biggest of the big here. What can I say? It's a little shameless self-promotion there, what? But so JWC was up 13.92% to 90 cents today. Wow. Namaste Technologies up over $2 today, 6.7% rise, 13 cents higher, 207. Wow. IntelGenx Technologies, never heard of them, but they're up 5.49% to up 5 cents to 96 cents. Let's see some of the other names. Fluorotech Limited. Fluorotech, you know why I'm following Fluorotech? Is because they make both a roadside breathalyzer, which I hope fails miserably because it's going to be conflict of interest. No, I'm just kidding. They make this roadside breathalyzer for the cops, as well as they make a device that can sit on this table here, and it can test cannabis samples from all of the LPs in the universe, and we'll be able to objectively, scientifically, data analytically figure out what is the actual CBD content, what is the THC content, what kind of terpenes we're dealing with here. Is it indica? Is it ruderalis? Is it sativa? So that's what we're going to start doing after October 17th is one of the new shows that's coming onto our network here, is we're going to analyze all of the LP's products on a continuous basis every single day without actually smoking it or inhaling it or eating it or drinking it. So that should be interesting. We have some great new shows in development. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because it's 420. And what's the significance of 420? I've probably said this before. Disagree with me if you like in the comments, but my understanding of the significance of 420 in cannabis land is 420 was often just a metaphor for what time school was over, meaning it's time to go get high at 420 every day. And that was my understanding from a very young age. And so I've seen other competing interpretations of what the significance of 420 was. People said, it's April 20th is the significance. No, that the day April 20th was taken from the expression 420, not the other way around. That I know because I was here for the advent of both of those things, and there was no 420 back in the day. Let me tell you, there was no April 20 to go, or rather April 20th to go get high. That just didn't happen. I think that actually started in Vancouver, was the day of cannabis protests every year. But that again was derived from the expression 420, as it is right now. Time to get high. No, it's not time to get high. Smoke cannabis every day. Nope, not here. Embleys, what else is going on? Emblem was up 3.3%. They're a regular guest here. We like Emblem. Let's see who else. Endiva. Endiva's up 3.8% to 82 cents. So again, we seem to have the rising tide lifting all boats phenomenon is continuing to take things higher. We're going to take a quick look here at Cronos after the market finale. Why? Because we want to see just how Andrew Left's flaccid report ended up harming the company. And oh, look at that. They're up 8.84% after a day of losing. So yesterday they lost $4 on 22 million shares. Today they're up on 15 million shares traded in Canada. Now, if we look at what they traded in the U.S., you will just do that here. So 43 million shares traded in the U.S. Like, wow. Andrew had made a good, or rather, Alan Brochstein made a great point that the U.S. market was driving a lot of this new value appreciation in all the stocks, and I think there is proof of exactly what he's saying. 43 million shares traded in the U.S. versus 15 million traded in Canada. Let's take a look at weed versus CGC, weed being Canopy growth symbol in Canada. What do we got here? Weed traded 10 million shares in Canada. And now let's punch up CGC, see how it did in the US. 14 million shares in the US. Okay, very interesting. So yeah, a lot of the new money is coming from the United States. I think the lesson we can learn from the short report from Andrew Left's Citron Research is, obviously there was a trade there. You could have shorted it to $12 and made some dough. The borrow was 45% annualized, I think, was what one of my sources told me. So not a hugely up-taken trade, kind of expensive and extremely risky if you were planning to exit or reaccumulate a little lower. We did predict that there would be a short squeeze today, and it certainly happened. I'm sure there's a lot of people sort of licking their wounds now today. What else are we going to talk about today? So let's go back to, we didn't look at the CSE stocks yet, did we? No, we did not. Okay, CSE index page. CSE was up 3.25%, so this is an index of all companies trading in Canada on the Canadian Securities Exchange. The pop-up by default is listed by order of market cap, which is interesting because we've got huge crawling up the market cap ranking here with that big day it had today. I don't have any idea what drove that sort of interest, up 27% today. Liberty Health Sciences up 4.65% to 90 cents. Liberty Health Sciences is the American junior offspring of Aphria. Aphria will control 40% of that company until such time as the feds in the U.S. deprohibit cannabis criminally. Green Thumb Industries, probably one of the most anonymous companies, at least from my perspective. I've never met them. I don't even know what they do. Green Thumb Industries is up 4.28%. It's up 62 cents to 15.09. Marican, one of the favorite stocks of a lot of people on these chats, is up again today, 0.5%, up a penny to $1.96. Marican executing rather handily on its German and its Ontario strategy. We will have Ben Ward in here in the next couple of weeks. That reminds me, we will have also on Tuesday, Mike Gorenstein, CEO of Cronos Group, will be here, and we'll get to have his take on exactly what the breakdown was of the report, what his impression was of the Citron Research report. Boy, you can tell I'm starting to get a bit punchy here after talking nonstop for an hour and a half almost. What else is going on? Liberty Health Sciences I just talked about. Green Thumb Industries. So let's reorder these CSE companies to see who did the worst. New Age Farm was the biggest loser on the CSE, down 7.69% to 12 cents. Future Farm Technologies not far behind, having lost 7.27%, down to 51 cents, down 4 cents. Cantab down 7.25%. So lots of red in the CSE, but the CSE has more cannabis listings than any other exchange. Now let's see who the best performers were on the CSE. Whoa. Lifestyle Delivery Systems up 29.27%, up 12 cents. Lifestyle Delivery Systems, that's Brad Eckenweiler, who I met out in Vancouver probably 2 years ago. Lifestyle Delivery Systems has the under-the-tongue sublingual strips, much like the Listerine strips that deliver an instant hit of predetermined dosage of cannabinoids. Speakeasy Cannabis Club, who we just spoke to yesterday, up 16 cents, 28%, closing at 73. Obviously, after our interview, that's a fundamental catalyst, and it's in and of itself. I don't know if you've noticed this. I just wanted to share with people out there because I had somebody say to me, well, your audience isn't that big, so I'm not in that much of a hurry to get on your show. And I'm just going to share a little graphic with you here. This is of the Creator Studio because our our creative partners at 4 East Media, who are coming on to help us develop shows. I want you to take a look at, oh, the NDI is too blurry. That's too bad. Well, maybe if I make it huge. There we go. Look at this. Watch minutes in the last 28 days, 3.5 million minutes. Oops. Let's pull that back a bit. This is in the last 7 days. 48,000 views of our content over the last 7 days. Over 1,400 premium views. Wow, 10,700 minutes watched in the last week, but it's the 28-day look. 510,000 views, 500,000 views in just 28 days. Our subscribers are up by 1,503 in the last 28 days. We actually broke 500 subscribers in the last 7 days. So we're starting to add subscribers at the rate of 2,000 per month, for which I must say, I thank you all for driving us to what looks like a critical mass, and we're going to be around for a while. 1,811 views. Look at that. Unbelievable. Anyways, so next week we're going to have, let's see, I'm going to pull up the calendar so that I can tell you exactly what's going on next week. We got some really great stuff happening. It's the end of summer in terms of the investment marketplace is concerned, so that will obviously be a factor. Let's see here, where can I get next week? No. All right, so next week, who do we have? Cronos Group is on Thursday. Sorry, not Tuesday. Cronos Group is on Thursday. They'll be on the live stream at 3:30. We will also have CEO of Sokoman Iron, which is the company that made the discovery, rocked on up to 50 cents before it fell back to 18 cents. He's going to be here to tell us why we should be excited about his next drill program. We have MetaPharm CEO Pat McCutcheon will be here on Wednesday. MetaPharm is a pretty interesting company, the first company to get an extraction license without having a sales or a grow license, which is really intriguing. I'm looking forward to that. Levitection will be here next week at 9:30 a.m. Oh no, sorry, Levitection, that's a company I'm having a meeting with. Never mind. We also have a pre-record with Valens Growworks CEO Tyler Robson, VGW on the CSE. We haven't talked to Tyler in a while. They are a client, full disclosure. It will be interesting to hear how their business plan is unfolding. They are very extracts focused and are probably one of the most important extractors in the Canadian universe. Lots going on. This is all happening next week. So if you like the show, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to tell your friends. Feel free to sign up for the newsletter, because that's where we're going to start revealing stock picks from some of the more prescient guests that we have over time. It will only be for subscribers. It will also be an option for accredited investors to participate in some of the financings that come our way. So by all means, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Facebook, subscribe on Twitter, subscribe on, you name it, subscribe, LinkedIn. We're there, we're everywhere. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic long weekend. We'll see you next week.